Hi, everyone. My name is Dan Russell, and I'm talking to you from the Googleplex in Mountain View, California. And we're going to go through teaching search in the classroom. It's a little presentation we put together. The plan here is to go for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so, and leave the last 15 minutes for discussion and question answering. So if that's okay with you, I'm going to get started because nothing drives me crazier than webinars that are slow and boring. So we'll try to not be either of those things, okay? So let's see if we can get this thing to move, actually. So there we go. So you all know about Google's mission. The point of Google is to get access to all the world's information. And you know that we have currently indexed millions and billions of online content web pages in many, many different kinds and formats and forms. Increasingly, offline content is becoming indexed as well. You see that with the increase of magazines, books, scholarly articles, and so on. Now, what we're trying to do is to allow you, the user, the end user, the students in the classroom, to find information and be able to use it in a useful kind of form. All right? So that's pretty straightforward. Let's get to the interesting bit. So I'm Dan Russell, and I'm the guy on the left-hand side there. Also online or having helped work on all this material are Kathleen Ferenc, Cheryl Davis, and Lucy Gray. They're Google certified teachers, and we've worked all together with Salome and Sergio Civetta, Flavio Oliveira, and a few other folks to put all this information out online for you. So thanks to Salome for organizing and hosting this webinar. So let's get going, okay? If you have particular questions, you can always IM Salome, and we'll try to answer them later on in the conversation. Okay, so let's get going. The state of search. Well, you all know what the state of search is. It's free, it's out there, everyone can use it. Or is that really true? Not everyone is equally good at doing search, it turns out. That's really the main focus of my research at Google, is to understand how people search. And one of the things that I've noticed is that there's actually a kind of a divide in the skill levels of different people as they search. And our job here today is to really help you, give you some of the tools, some of the insights, and some of the techniques that allow you to be a better searcher, as well as to communicate this to your students. So the new digital divide could be between the searchers and the folks who don't quite know how to think about search. So what our goal is today is really just try to help you think about ways of thinking of search, ways to teach that, and ways to make yourself a continuous searcher. So in other words, what we want to do is to try to transmit some of this culture from us, from the way people think about search naively to the way we want to be thinking about search going forward. Because this really is, if you think about it, the new online world is sort of the universe of stuff that students will be using, and it really has changed the nature of cultural literacy, the nature of education, and we could talk about that for hours, but let's not. Let's instead talk about how people search and how to teach that a little bit better. One of my personal goals in all of this is to help students and teachers develop what I call a research stance. Now, what I mean by that is that what I do when I teach in the classroom is I want students to be thinking, how can I frame this as a question that I want to understand? That is, a good student, a good learner, is always asking questions. They're always going through this sort of metacognitive ritual of how can I understand this material better? So when a student, for example, is studying biology in 8th grade, a biology class, and they're studying, say, Lake Tahoe here in California, what questions should they be asking about Lake Tahoe? How can they research that? How can they find out information that will augment their learning? Now, part of this is also to be able to have the skills and the research stance which says you always have to learn new things. You can't just learn the skills of today in Google research and expect that this is going to be true in 5 years. Think about it. 11 years ago, Google didn't exist. Okay? 11 years from now, it's going to be a whole new universe out there. So you, as a teacher, and our students need to have this research constantly learning lifestyle. It has to taking a stand that says I constantly have to change my understanding and update because the search engines are always going to change and the web is always changing. The content that's out there now is not anything like the content that was out there 5 years ago. So as we develop more search tools, you need to be thinking, how can I be a better searcher? How can I be a better student? How can I be a better self-teaching student? Okay. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about some search techniques and strategies, tactics and strategies, when you search, how you do it, and we're going to show you a little bit about the search curriculum that we've developed. All the Google certified teachers and myself. We'll talk about that at the very end. Okay? So let's get going. Let's start with the very basics here. How do you search? Now, I assume you all are fairly tech savvy. Okay? But let's get going. I'm going to show you a little bit of things here to make your life a little bit easier. First off, when you see search terms like this, Boulder, Colorado Sports, inside of the square brackets, the square brackets are what we call medicine tactics. That is, that you don't actually type in the stuff, you don't actually type in the square brackets. You just type in the query term. In this case, Boulder, Colorado Sports. So that's the query terms, okay? So when you see that in the examples later on, just forget about the square brackets. It's just to show you where the query terms start and stop, okay? Now, you've all used Google or some other search engine. Okay? So let me point out a couple of these things on the search engine's results page for you. Okay? So if you look, you see the organic search results occur below the top ads and to the left of the right-hand side ads. So if you think about it, we make money, all the search engines make money by having advertising, and it's important for you to know what's advertising and what's not. So you see in the lower left corner, you see a little map and local business results for jewelry near Chicago. This was made by somebody in Chicago, so they're showing local results for that. Those are not advertisements. Those are the best locations for the search results about jewelry near Chicago. Okay? The stuff with the light yellow background are ads. Those are called the top ads. And you see the right-hand side to the right of that vertical blue line. Okay? So let's go to the next page. That's kind of the layout. Very simple, very straightforward. Now, I've shown you kind of the same result again, but here, I did it here in Palo Alto. As you can see that I've actually shown the jewelry results in that local map located where I am. If you run this where you're located, it will show you a map located where your computer is located. Okay? The other thing I wanted to point out is if you look at the end, say, the first result there for, say, Tiffany & Co., it says Tiffany.com in green, hash, similar, and then there's 3 symbols to the right of that. Okay? You see it looks like a little bubble, a little up arrow, and an X. That's called Search Wiki. Now, you only will get that if you're logged in. Okay? That's a way of commenting on a search result, its quality, or its not so greatness, or actually deleting the result. Now, it just deletes it for you. Okay? The important point to take away here is that those kinds of added elements will appear and disappear depending on whether or not you're logged in or whether or not you have it turned on. So, for example, you could be logged in, but you may not see that, or if you're not logged in, you won't see it. So pay attention to those little details in the interface because they will come and go and change from time to time. Now, if you actually, let's go back one slide. If you look at the right-hand side ads, you can see we've got sterling silver jewelry and all this stuff. So if you go forward one, you see now we have display ads in the upper right corner. Okay? That has changed since that previous slide was made. So what's happening is the page itself is constantly evolving. Pay attention to that because new features will come, old features will disappear, and new capabilities will be available to you. So here's another one. Here I've logged out and done the same query, and you can see it's slightly different. The Search Wiki UI elements are gone. All right? So one of the important features that Google has are what we call one-boxes. Okay? One-boxes are features that display inside the organic search results that are special to the kind of query that you make. So here the query is Tiger Woods. You can see in the upper left corner that sort of little bubble that says PGA Tour Golf Tiger Woods. That's an extra added result. We know who Tiger Woods is. It's not like Google has never heard of Tiger Woods. We know he's playing in a tournament, and at the time that this query was made, this extra added result with the icon on the left was merged into the result to kind of give you the latest update of all the information. So you can see I've highlighted it there. That's what we call one box. Now, if you look on the bottom of that page, there's another kind of one box. This is the Encyclopedia Britannica one box that the person who made this query has subscribed to results from Encyclopedia Britannica. We're not going to get into that today, but whenever you see a kind of icon on the left-hand side of a result like that, you see the multicolored icon there, or the balloon in the PGA tour, those are one boxes, which are extra added results that improve the quality of your search results. So you can see that here. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out here, you see the thing that's highlighted with the red dot. Okay, those are the options. Okay, we call this the tool belt, but if you click on that, what you'll see is all that stuff on the left-hand side. Let's go back. I'm going to go back one and go forward one. When you click on Show Options, it opens up a new set of menu items on the left-hand side. So you see the thing that says All Results, Videos, Forums, Reviews, or Anytime Recent Results, and so on. Those are new filtering options. So, for example, you can do Steven Spielberg, but click on past 24 hours, and it will show you the results that have been updated in the past 24 hours. Okay? This is particularly useful when you're trying to look for time-sorted kinds of results, like from news, say within the past year. You can also change the way the results are presented to you. So, for example, if you click on images from the page below standard results, it will start to automatically include pictures to the right of the search results. Okay? I'll let you explore all those on your own. I wanted to highlight for you, though, that the tool belt options view gives you a lot more fine-grained control over the search results. And I'm willing to bet most of you have not clicked on that. Am I right? Yeah, I can hear you all saying I'm right. So when you get a chance, be sure to check that out. Now, here is absolutely the fundamental thing you need to teach. You need to teach students. And I'll tell you why in a second. But how do you find something on the page? Suppose you've done a search like Narnia, right? Now, I'm trying to find where does the word Lewis appear on this page. Now, you can visually start to look through that. I can find it. It's right there, okay? The problem is when you end up on a very long page and you're looking for a single word, that's a major pain. Because you're trying to identify one token out of 1,000 pieces of information on a page, and that's problematic. So, if you don't know about Control F, or if you're on a Mac, Command F, you need to know about it. In fact, what you need to do is teach this to all the students, because most students, even though they may be the digital audio age, they don't know about this. Okay? So, in particular, if you can't remember about Control F or Command F, you can always use Edit Find. That's true on all browsers. It's a menu item. Under Edit, you can go down to Find, click Find Word, and you'll be able to use it to find a particular word on a page. It works on any web page. So, for example, the example I usually give is to go to a very long page and say race results and look for my name. And it's a page where I've literally seen people spend 10, 12, 15 minutes trying to find my name. And if you use Control F or Command F, it becomes basically an instantaneous operation. This will save you a huge amount of time. So there's an example. Under the Edit menu, you can see Find on Page, and then you'll be able to get to that. Okay, those are sort of real basics. Okay, we're going to go on to the next section here on search strategy. Okay? Now, by search strategy, what I really mean are how to organize your search. We often think about Google as being immediate and just so simple that you just type in a single word and you're done. Well, that's not really true. It's often the case that you need to be thinking about what it is you're looking for. I'll give you an example. I was talking with a teacher in Pennsylvania who wanted to find the position of the planet in the night sky. And I was watching her do this query, and she typed in the word constellation. That's a great query, but it has nothing to do with planets. So, when you're thinking about your query, think about what is it you're really looking for? What are common keywords? How would someone else talk about it? So, in particular, what you need to be thinking about, how would someone who writes about this talk about it? How would they describe it? In essence, think about it like this. It's not about you. It's about how someone else would write that web page. how someone else would express that idea you're searching for. And in particular, what terms would they use? How would they talk about it? Would they talk about constellation? Well, maybe. But I bet they would include the word planet somewhere on the web page. So be thinking, how would they write those kinds of words? And in particular, what terms would be specialized to that topic? So orbit might be one word. Planetary, planet, those are words that would be specialized to that kind of topic. The other thing strategically to be thinking about is what kind of thing would make you happy? Are you looking for a single web page? Are you looking for a site? Are you looking for a collection of images? What kind of thing is it you're looking for? Okay? So, this brings me to the critical skill, what I call the art of keyword choice. What is it you're searching for? Now, let me give you a big tip here. When you're searching for something complex, like, say, the date that the author of The Great Gatsby died, you probably don't want to type in a query like, the date the author of The Great Gatsby died. Two problems with that. First, too many words. When you start your query, when you start your search process, try to start with a small or short query. Start with 2 words, with 3 words. I might start with Great Gatsby author, something like that. Okay? And in particular, another thing about that query is it's 2 ideas. It's the death of the author and who is the author. Now, you probably know who wrote The Great Gatsby, so you can immediately ask Scott Fitzgerald. But suppose I ask you a hard question like, what is the birth date of the Secretary of Defense for Romania? Okay? That's a multi-step question. You have to break it down into pieces. That's the strategy. Again, try to put yourself in the mindset of someone who would write the words that would describe the concept. And if you need to break that concept down into pieces, you need to break it into pieces that you can solve individually. So, part of the art of keyword choice is to think not only how would someone else write this, but what are synonyms or other terms for that idea. For example, when we go and we have pig at the local barbecue joint, you call it pig? No, you call it pork, right? When you go and have a roasted sheep on the plains of Mongolia, you don't call it sheep, you call it mutton. When you eat deer, it's usually called venison. So here's a question for you. If you visit your cousin in Australia, and they say grilled kangaroo, how would you find out another word for kangaroo meat? Right? Think about that for a second. How would you do it? Well, let me tell you. The simple and obvious solution is to look for a synonym for that term. And I would do a search, kangaroo meat name, and you scan through that looking for a page with a plausible answer. Now, it turns out Wikipedia has a brilliant article on this. You can find it there. But that's not always true, right? What you need to do is to be thinking to yourself, how else would I describe this? What's another word to use if your current searches are not succeeding? Give you another example. When an artist is making a sculpture for a client, they often make a little teeny-weeny example of the sculpture. What's that thing called? What you're looking for now, think about it. You're looking for a word that describes a concept and you don't know what it is. You have no idea what that word is. So what do you do? So the easiest solution I found was to do the query small-scale model art. Okay? And then what I was looking for is I was looking through the snippet, the stuff in black here, below each of those blue links, and looking for a word that I did not recognize. Now you see down there, the last result I put out here is how artists use maquette. Oh, I don't know what a maquette is. I better check that out. So what you can do is use Google as a dictionary. This is part of your strategy, is to look for a term that you don't recognize, double check it. Don't you always tell your students to double check their work? Right? So you should be double checking. And you can use this trick of define colon. So you see that term, that query, define colon maquette. If you do that, you'll get the definition of that word from Google in a very nice, succinct form. Okay? So, now, think about this. We're trying to use Google not only as a way to look up pieces of information, but to extend your repertoire of things you know. Now, everybody on their upper lip has a little indentation, right? Problem is, I don't know what it's called. And if I'm trying to do research on that indentation, like what's the function of it, you can't do a search without first figuring out what to call that thing. So what's the obvious solution? The art of keyword choice would say, keep the search quick, keep the query short, keep the query to the point, keep the query using terms you think people would write. So I type upper lip indentation. There are 1,000 ways to do this query. Point is, you can always get to it, and you can find the word that index in the solution, in the snippet, in the query results that you don't recognize. In this case, filter. Right? Again, you can double check on this by saying define filter. Okay? All right. Take a slight additional strategic step here. We've talked about using short queries. We've talked about using synonyms that extend the range of concepts you want to search for. And we've talked about searching for words that you don't know yet. Okay? Now, so let me give you a question. When I was hiking recently in the Henry Coe State Park, I was looking for a little blue flower that I thought was very pretty. I thought, how can I find this flower? I don't know what it is. How can I find out what it is? Well, the simplest solution I could come up with was to start with blue wildflowers, California, but that didn't work. Now, step back for a second. What I'm showing you is stuff that I tried that did not work. Okay? I'll tell you what worked at the very end there. It says wildflowers, Henry Coe Park. Why did that work and the other ones didn't work? Well, blue wildflowers, California is an immense query. There are millions of hits. It's too broad, it's too general. I added Henry Coe because that's the place I found it. Now, there are other ways to limit the search, but what you're always doing in searching is trying to strike a balance between being too broad and being too narrow. In this case, what I found was a collection of pictures of blue flowers in Henry Coe, which is now a limited set. I was able to very quickly browse through that and find exactly the right answer right there. Okay? So in this case, wildflowers, album, Henry Coe, that's another way to do it. Finally find that the answer is houndstone, western houndstone, Sonoglossum rhymes. It's a beautiful flower. I highly recommend you check it out when the next time you're in California. Okay. Strategies. We're thinking about strategies. Now, think about the fact that Google, in truth, has many different kinds of content. Like I said at the beginning, we're trying to index anything we can get our crawlers into. News, images, patents, scholarly articles, maps, you name it, we're trying to index it. So let me ask you the following question. What are all the parts of a bicycle called? Now, you probably know about the gear shift, you know about tires and wheels. But what's that, for example, that cluster of stuffed gears in the very back called? Now, what we're really looking for here is a diagram, right? I want all the parts labeled. So what I would do is bicycle parts or bicycle diagram or something like that. But then click on the Images tab in the upper left corner, okay? When you do that, you'll immediately do an image search with that query, and you will very quickly find diagrams like this that have all the parts of the bicycle labeled. You can do this, for example, with something like Stirling engine, or something more complex like what are all the parts of a battleship called. You get the idea. Sometimes it's a great strategic move is not to do a simple web search, but to do an image search. Okay? So, one of the strategies I teach is to think about making your queries short, making your queries to the point, making them possibly images versus webs, but also you can think about using additional specifiers. That is, words that describe the kind of result you want. Do you want an album? Do you want an example? Do you want a forum? Do you want a workbook? Do you want a frequently asked questions file? These are all additional words you could add in. So, for example, in the middle there, if you want to look up, for example, Chinese wedding dress information, you might want to look in a forum and not just look through random web pages. Or you might want to use Google's blog search to search just through blogs. You get the idea. These terms can be added in as specifiers to say what kind of information to focus on. So go back to the planetary, looking for the planets in the night sky, I might have done something like planet night sky diagram, something like that. Now, a couple of these words, like tutorial or workbook, are incredibly handy when you're trying to look for something for yourself. Suppose you needed to brush up on, say, differential equations. I haven't done differential equations in weeks, and I can't possibly remember how to do it. Right? So you might do a query like differential equations plus workbook. Okay? You always would add in a term like this when you're not succeeding. So let me summarize here really quickly. Choose words that are going to be on the page. Put yourself in the mind of the person who writes that web page. So don't start with 5 or 10 words. Probably don't need to ask questions like, who is the author of Great Gatsby? If you just say author of Great Gatsby, you probably got it in the first place. If you know a very specific term, probably could use it. So, for example, if I knew Synonyms grande was the name of that particular flower, I would use that. But keep in mind what kind of results you're going to get. You're going to get botanical results, horticultural sites. You're going to get very learned information because you use a Latinate term. And be sure you got it correct, because if I said Synonyms minor, I'd be talking about a different flower. I'd be totally wrong. Okay? Now, one of the things I pointed out is don't get stuck on a particular term. This is probably the single greatest cause of people getting stuck in their searches, is that they use a particular term and they won't give it up. And what's happening is that the results never include that word. This is the biggest problem I have when I'm doing searches, is I get completely wedged on using a particular term. Try to describe it to your neighbor, to your friends, to your colleagues, and see if they understand that term that you're using, or if they can come up with a better one. So, overall ideas, if you're really getting stuck, use a different medium. Use, say, YouTube or Google Video or images. Okay? There are a couple of things you might not know about this. Word order matters. Now, truth is, it doesn't matter that much, but I will tell you, the results for black and white as a search are different than the results white, black, and white. Black and white, white or black. If you reverse the blacks and whites, you get different results. Okay? And in particular, one thing that I hear lots of people saying is, oh, don't include the stop words like of, then, and so on. But in truth, for certain kinds of queries, including the stop words like Lord of the Rings, actually will give you better results. Now, I know this seems to conflict with my previous thing about using small numbers of query terms, but when you're using a very common phrase like Lord of the Rings or a title, include all those middle words because it's actually matching against the sequence of the entire word. Lastly here, use double quotes properly. That means don't include like 3 double quotes, just include a pair. Okay? And I usually use it when I'm looking for someone's proper name, like Daniel M. Russell. I'm unfortunately burdened with a very common name. So looking for double quote Daniel M. Russell will tend to find that particular expression of my name, and not some other random permutation there. Okay? Now, people, if you've got questions, just IM them to the list here, and we're keeping track of them, and we'll get around to them all at the end. I can't switch back and forth between this very easily, so we're going to handle them at the end. Okay? Search features. These are a set of things that you might know some of them, and this is another one of those areas where you kind of have to stay up on what's going on. So what I recommend is that you check out the search blogs. So, for example, you could read the Google blog maybe once a week or something to sort of stay up on what new one-boxes of new search features we're adding. But here's a bunch of things. We've already talked about, for example, define. Define colon maquette, or define colon whatever your favorite search term is. Now, it's particularly handy, I will tell you, for looking up words that aren't in the dictionary yet. So if you look up define colon pwned, P-W-N-E-D, you'll get a very nice definition of it. This is useful if you're teaching the 6th grade, and kids are saying words and you have no idea what they mean. Check it out. Define colon will scan the web for definition and return you the web-based definition, which is way ahead of anything any formal dictionary can have. There's also the ability to do conversion. So here we're showing you the conversion of, say, 12 US dollars into euros. You can just type 12 USD in euros and you'll get the answer. You can also do other conversions, like 12 kilometers in feet or 12 degrees centigrade in Fahrenheit. We have all the conversion units we could possibly think of. So if you want to convert 100 miles into light years, you can type 100 miles in light years. So the pattern there is number, unit, in second unit. So 10 miles in furlong, as an example. You can also do lots of kind of cute tricks like tracking a flight, like American Airlines Flight 1. You just type in the code for that. Or you can do calculations like the cosine of 25 squared times 4.5, weather forecast by typing in the zip code or the city name, movies, stock prices, time, etc., etc. You can see all that stuff there. Explore. We're always adding new kinds of one boxes like this. We recently added, it's not even on the slide yet, we recently added a statistics one box that allows you to look up, for example, employment data for your city or state. So you got to stay awake here. New stuff comes up all the time, and you want to be on top of it as it comes up. So here's some examples. This is an example of the define colon operator, define colon Colorado, define colon McCat, define colon Poland, whatever. And you can see that will give you a nice definition plus all the sources. You can actually track down where that definition came from. Earthquake, you can see for Colorado. Calculator does a lot of different things. Okay, so you've seen a little bit about keyword choice, a little bit about strategies and tactics, a little bit about some of the special search features we've got in the one boxes. Now let's talk about some resources that we've got available. Okay? So there are three big ones that we wanted to point you to today. The first one is the search education curriculum that we've developed, and we'll show you some examples of that in a little bit. But working with the Google certified teachers that we talked to Kathleen and Lucy, we've developed a whole set of search resources for you to use in teaching your classes. Okay? We've also got some back-to-school tips, and finally we've got some ways to look at and explore Google search. So let's look at the first topic. Okay? Google search curriculum. So as I said, we developed these 9 lessons that work at 3 different levels, basic, intermediate, and advanced, on 3 different sets of topics: understanding search engines, search techniques and strategies, features and operators. Okay? Now we've kind of done a quick overview of all that. But now let's dive into these particular materials, because these materials have been made with you in mind, with the teachers in mind. So what we've got here are 9 different lesson plans and bodies of content that you can use in your classroom. You can use these freely, just, have a good time with them. Let's go into them. You can see here there are 9 different things you can click on. Let's look, for example, at the very first one, Start Your Engine, which is, if you look on that piece, it's the upper left corner, the link that says Start Your Engine. So the idea here is, what do you need to know in order to understand what a search engine is and how it works? So what you see here, we've got an overview of the lesson, we've got the objectives for this particular module, and the material. The presentation link there that says Google Presentation Start Your Engine, that's actually a link to a Google presentation which is described below in the instructions. So you can see it actually walks you step by step through the slides and gives you the whole lesson plan from beginning to end. I encourage you to spend some time and actually go through these and actually go through all the materials here so you can figure out what will work best for your students, in your context, in your class. Okay. So here's the Believe It or Not lesson. So this is another one. This comes from, I'm backing up just a little bit. This is the on top. So this is the advanced lesson for understanding search engines, called Believe It or Not. Okay? So here again, we've got a presentation. We've got some instructions, links to slides, the whole bit. This is where we're actually trying to get people to talk about what does it mean to assess credibility, what does it mean to understand how authoritative the web result is. Because for my money, getting kids to understand at search results and understand what's believable, what's not, is really crucial to having them become literate citizens, literate users of the web. Okay? So, you can see here, this is an example from that I believe that this is that advanced lesson on understanding search and trying to understand what makes sense. So here, this is an example, a slide from the presentation that you can use, and you can go through that at your own leisure when you get a moment. Okay? So, the bottom line there is we've developed these 9 lesson plans for you. We've made the presentations available to you, the lesson plan, the whole thing's there. We'll be sending out the links to all this in just a little bit at the very end. Okay? So hang on. But you should be able to find them now. At this point, you should have the skills you need in order to be able to find these lessons. Okay. Second major body of information here, back-to-school study tips. Now, these are just a collection of ideas and a collection of suggestions for you to pass along to your students. So, for example, do you know, you probably know, but do you know that you can search 10 million different books? That number is constantly growing. What it means is for your students is they have full access, searchable access to text like Moby Dick, or the Scarlet Letter, or you name it. Okay? So this is really nice for your students so they can actually find that passage that they wanted to quote. Now, not an opportunity to plagiarism. You want to be able to teach them how to make proper quotation, citation, and so on. But look what's possible. You can search through books. You can search through scholarly articles by going into Google Scholar. You can use those search options we mentioned. You can search for other languages. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do here. I suggest you spend a little bit of time looking through this again so you can, for example, find out where the Life Image Archive is. So you can see, for example, all those great images from Life magazine from, say, the Apollo mission. The example I usually give with the Life Image Archive is to look at original source image material for, say, George Custer. You can actually see what he looked like and what he was how he was being presented in pages of Life magazine. The third section I wanted to point you to is the Explore Google search page. This is a collection of really nicely done short videos that illustrate almost all of those search features that we talked about earlier. The sports explorers, how to get to time, how to get package tracking. So you can see here there are these short, 30-second, 1-minute long videos where you can click on it and actually see how it's done. So if you weren't able to take notes here, or you can't remember how to do it, go to this page and you'll be able to see worked out examples of how everything goes. Okay. So we're just about to 40 minutes here, and we're just about to 40-minute slide, so it works out well. Remember, the point of this entire endeavor is really to give power to you, the teachers, and power to the students to develop this kind of outlook. The outlook is this research stance. How to think about the world in ways so that you can search for things about the world and understand much more deeply, much more richly. So what we want to be able to do is to not only teach you these tactics as they exist right now, but more importantly, take this research stance and fold it back into your own learning, into your own teaching practice. How can I learn to be a better searcher, not only now, but in times ahead? All right? And I think that gets you right to the end. So let's open it up for questions. But before we do that, Lucy, are you on the line?
Hi, Lucy. That concludes the presentation part, but Lucy wanted to say a few words about the lessons. Lucy Gray is one of the Google certified teachers who worked very hard to put these lessons together. So she can say a few words about that. 1 minute.
Hold on a second, Lucy. I'm trying to turn Lucy's phone on.
This is Cheryl Davis, and while you're getting Lucy on, I can jump in and say a few things too. Is that when we developed these lessons, we were really kind of focusing on the fact that search teaches students how to strategize and kind of pointing at one of the net standards, which is students using digital tools to be able to gather, evaluate, use information, and guide inquiry. And so we wanted to make something, as we tried searching with our students and as we worked with other teachers who were searching, something that was quick and modular so that no matter what you were doing in class, there was a little short piece that maybe you could grab and use that would sort of move your students forward. So that's kind of how we set them up, and that the levels also vary with the levels of your students. And so we think this will be very helpful, that you'll be able to kind of mix and match and pick where you need to go depending upon what your students are doing. And kind of from what Dan said, there were just things that really jumped out at me that I think are important for us teachers. And one is that search is the new digital divide, and so teaching students how to strategize with search really will help them move forward. And the other thing is a lot of kids, as I watch them search, they think search is a one-step process. Just throw in the word and it'll go there, and then if it doesn't, they get frustrated. But this is like a puzzle and a problem solve, and I think that when they're thinking about synonyms and things like that, it really broadens their scope and also helps them understand how to kind of move through this vast array of information that we all have to deal with. And I think that is really one of the most important things that we can teach our students. They might not remember the content, but if they know how to search for it in the future, that's really going to help them out.
Hi, everybody. I'm unmuted now. I just want to add I'm Lucy, and I'm so excited to see you all here. I had an amazing time working with Cheryl and Kathleen on this project and learning so much from Dan. The one thing I want to say is that somebody pointed out to me in the chat, and we've talked about this quite a bit, that teachers also need to have this mindset, and not all teachers are aware that they should have this mindset. So I hope people will also take these lessons and use them for PD and pass them on to their colleagues. And the other piece of this, too, is that this is not a search mentality is not going to be developed over one lesson. We think these modular lessons can be reused in any kind of content area, and these strategies should always be kind of applied over a course or a long period of time, because it's not something that you learn just in one shot. It's something that you need to develop. So those are the 2 points that I wanted to make. But anyway, it's been a great project, and we're really pleased with how it's turned out, and thanks to the Google team for making us look really good, because it was fun to do. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl and Lucy. We really appreciate it. So we have a couple of questions. Feel free to keep chatting with me about those questions. I'll add them to our list. The first one comes to us from Brenda Barr. She asks, does the edit find work on any of the Google search engines, for example, Images, Scholar? Dan, do you want to take this question?
Sure. Edit find or Control F or Command F is a general skill that works in everything, basically. It works in PowerPoint, it works in Google Docs, it works anywhere. And a lot of people don't realize that. So, in particular, if you're, for example, working in PowerPoint, you've got 100 slides, and you need to find the one slide that says Dan Russell, you Control F or Edit Find, type Dan Russell into the search box, and it will find it. So, that's a general skill to know. Okay, it works on essentially all programs, almost everything does it. Now, there's one caveat, which is when you're in Images, it's going to search for the text that's on the web page. So, it's not going to find, for example, the red balloon unless that text actually appears on the web page. You know what I mean? So, know and use Control F because it works practically everywhere. It will make your work life a lot simpler.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. Another great question comes to us from Adina Sullivan. She says, I teach elementary school in a risk-averse school. How can I best let students search without running into problems? And a little bit of background, is there a way to pre-select what they see to start out? They've been having some issues with graphic images, and the administration is kind of hesitant to let us kind of search the use of tech in school. I think Cheryl and Lucy, if you have any thoughts on this, that would be great.
Well, I think one thing, I think if you turn Safe Search on, I think you should be okay with some things. But if you really want to scaffold it for kids in some ways, and I'm not sure if this is something that if Dan would agree with this, but one way of doing things would be to use Google Custom Search, where you can roll your own search engine for kids, and you could select sites that you know are safe with pictures, like Pics for Learning website could be one, for instance, and roll your own search engine and have kids use that search engine as they learn to become more sophisticated in their search techniques. That would be one thing that I would do with little kids. Cheryl, do you have any other ideas about young children and how you would use this?
No, that's what I was thinking too, Lucy, and you've built some great custom search engines, I know, for your students, and that would be definitely the way that I would go.
Yeah, they need some scaffolding because I think but I think you can start teaching them. Like one of my favorite things is to be able to search by file type. And so that's something that you could probably teach, some of the search features that are available within regular search, I would also start using. For instance, you can type in file type, the topic, then file type : JPG, and you can pull up JPEG. That's something that they could learn how to do as well.
That's right. So there's another sense of scaffolding that I want to add into yours, Lucy, which is when I teach my classes on search, I often will do a question or a topic that I really haven't done before, and I'll let the students watch me as I struggle with it and try to figure out how to overcome it. It's like teaching kids how to do math proofs. You can't expect them to learn how to do a proof if you just write the final solution path. You have to model it for them and let them see you succeed and fail and how you succeed and fail. That means you've got to be brave. You've got to actually be willing to stand up there and do it and be able to accept the fact that sometimes your students are going to find it before you do. That's good. That way you all get better.
It's much more of a constructivist approach, I think, that that mentality. And I think it's also really important here for schools to kind of develop a philosophy about this as well. Because if something, I think schools are so paranoid about protecting kids. They want to protect, understandably, they want to protect kids as much as possible. And so they want like this foolproof solution to finding safe images or whatever. And I think that is missing this point that it's a strategy that you have to develop, and that's probably going to lead your kids further than keeping them in a walled garden. So I think that this is something that administrators need to understand as well.
Great. Thank you so much. Another question we have from Valenina Miner. She asked kind of specific questions on the lessons. So Lucy, Cheryl, maybe you can answer this. Okay. What grade level would you be willing to begin to start to teach search lessons? So how do you kind of structure it to your classroom? When do you actually start in their kind of full development?
Well, like Dan said, you need to start by modeling it. So I think you can do it with younger kids by doing it yourself and using a projector and talking kids through the process of it, saying, well, how would they find out this information, and lead them through it that way. But I think kids actually getting it, I think I would start probably in 4th grade. We geared these lessons towards middle and high school, but I think you could adapt them for a little bit younger. So probably 3rd or 4th grade, you could probably adapt some of these things. But again, it's something, this is sort of a philosophy that you need to take on as a school, as a team, starting with little kids and modeling it.
And I would say also is that I wouldn't teach search in isolation like we used to teach computer skills in isolation. So I would, whatever topic you're on, take a little bit so that you're always referring back to it. So so that students become aware that this, I learned search, now let's, go do something else, and then forget it. So I think it needs to really be an integrated approach. And I agree. I think you could definitely get down into the lower middle school level. These were kind of geared for, middle and high school. But if you just maybe take one thing that's a little bit simpler and integrate that in to some of the lower grades, and then just move on up. I think it would be good. But always, no matter when you're going to send those kids out to do research about anything, I think it's time to always come back and revisit search, because they do need that practice over and over again. And this really will help them. They'll feel good. They'll feel successful. It's like when they find it, when they find the right thing, it's very exciting. It's always exciting for me when I'm able to, oh, yeah, that's what I was looking for. So I think it also is a positive process for students if you integrate it into everything, any research project or thing that you're doing.
Those are all great points. Let me have one other tip for teachers who are teaching this. I've successfully taught these topics to fourth graders, and it works very well. But here's the tip. You cannot prepare your slides and then expect all the searches that you've got in your slides to work the same way from class to class to class to class. The results will change. The web is changing, search engine gets better and constantly evolves. And so if you really are counting on a particular result being in the first or second position, you've got to try it out before class, because you cannot just rely that the query you used 6 months ago is going to give you the same result today.
Great. Another great question we have from Mike. He really loved the lessons, but he was wondering how we can build this mindset in our teachers. For example, how to counter, I don't have time to teach first mentality. What would you say to that?
Oh, that's a tough one. Do you have time to not teach kids how to write with a pencil? I think, again, this is an administrative kind of leadership issue. I think that, school leaders need to understand the importance of topics like this and need to convey that this is something that we're going to put an emphasis on in our teaching. It's hard to combat people who I know teachers are beleaguered and have a lot to do, but this stuff is really I found this stuff really kind of easy to incorporate into my workflow, and I think that if they took some time and looked at this, they would realize that they could do it in what they're already doing. It's really nothing. It's not an added burden, in my opinion, once you really dive into this and you see how it's just a matter of pointing things out to kids and showing them some ways of looking at things. And so it's refining your teaching. It's refining what you're doing with kids. It's not adding an extra layer, in my opinion. You need to have your again, administrators can't just say it's time for technology or technology is going to be relegated to a computer class. This is stuff that has to happen embedded in the everyday fabric of a classroom.
Yeah, and also as we work together to build these lessons, we had that in mind, and that's why they're modular, so that it wasn't just one big, long thing, but something that was quick and short. And if you look at some of the slideshows, they're very, very short, maybe 5, 6 slides, and some a little bit more and some a little bit less, but something that you can do within maybe 10 minutes and something quick that you can remind the students about. So they're kind of set up to integrate very quickly into whatever you're doing. And on the other point that Lucy was saying is that, information, fluency, literacy, that's got to be just a number one thing. And also another thing I think administrators are really concerned about, and teachers too, is how do we know students are finding things that are valid? You hear that all the time. Oh, how can you, teach them that everything on the Internet isn't the right, source or maybe isn't the truth? And that's a concern of parents and administrators and teachers. And so I think teaching proper search really answers that question, and that's important across anything that you're learning.
What about doing, if you have a back-to-school night or a parent night, modeling some of these search lessons for your parents? If you happen to be a tech